Hello, hello, hello. Hi, hello. Welcome. My name is Reddy. I have the pleasure to welcome all of you to Shift, the yearly conference and evening event in the Pocket. Maybe a show of hands. For whom is this the first time that you're at Shift? For who is this the second time that you're at Shift? The third time that you're at Shift? The fourth time? The fifth time? Production company also counts, Kind of feels like a reunion for some. I like it. So for the many new faces that we have today, just a very brief intro to share what Shift is all about. And in the Pocket, we have our tagline. And who know what our tagline is? Yes, all of you. Better products, bigger futures. As a digital product studio, we want to create great digital experiences that really add value to the strategy. Now, this slogan also captures what Shift is all about. It's about using the power of technology and design to create the best possible digital experiences that make users happy and businesses grow. But it's not just design and technology that come together, it's also the strategy, it's involving customers, it's being very mindful of how your teams and organization works together. Now, our program covers all these topics, so we really hope that you enjoy the program for the rest of the day. But content is not only what Shift is about. It's not just the topics that come together. It's also all of you coming together at our beautiful Ghent studio. So have a look to your left and to your right, or to your front and to your back, and I can guarantee you that the people you see are all, just like you, digital decision makers with the mandate, the power and the appetite to create these better products and these bigger futures. So most of all, enjoy the people that you're gonna meet this afternoon and this evening. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon and I'm already emotional. Back to the program. So what do we have in store for you today? First part of the afternoon, we have 4 interesting talks in Ruby, and I'll share a bit more info on the locations in just a minute. ITP strategist Sebastian and Peter will have a talk, or will tell you how to de-risk your business decisions. For all the talk about being data informed, it's actually surprising how few business strategies are actually informed by data, and how often or not that this data is actually shared with all the teams that have to work on this strategy. In Lisp, ITP and Angie joined forces to create a more sustainable future. Angie's Burger and in the Pocket, Tim will explain how they leverage the power of cloud and data and added some nice UX sauce on top of it to help people optimize their energy usage. In Fortran, we have Vimla Apado, an international guest who will share her secret sauce as well. Namely, how can you create a culture and environment where your teams can do their best work? And finally, here at the ADA stage, AI expert Ali El Hassouni will explain how they use the power of generative AI at digital bank Bunq. This sounded better spoken out loud than on the card. Digital bank Bunq. There we go. Now, at what locations can you get all these inspiration and insights? Well, we're gonna be honest, we're all wearing our best shirts, but we're still major geeks at heart. So all of our locations and stages are named for iconic development languages, for those who might be wondering. We have Ruby, which is all the way at the back to the left. We have Lisp, which is all the way at the back to the right. Then we have Fortran, which is over there, but it's easier if you go through there. And then the ADA stage is the stage that you're at right now. There's also arrows on the floor plans on the screens, and people all around. So if you get lost, just reach out to any of us. After the first round of talks, we have a short break from 3:30 to 4, where you can enjoy some coffee and cakes in the lounge. I don't know if that's the official name, but I just called it the lounge, which is right at the heart of our studio. Now, for people who've been here before, this is actually not the place where it used to be, since we're quite a crowd this year, over 250 people. That's really cool. There you can also enjoy some cool demos of some of the products that we've created over the past year. And then at 4, we have another round of talks. Now, you don't have to come back here. You can just go directly to the room or the stage that you've picked. For the second part of the afternoon, we have our colleague Bo, who will explain how we partnered with KBC and used the power of AI to combat a serious menace, namely phishing. Quinten and Nina will share their thoughts on the low-code movement, which are tools that require actually very little to no manual development. But of course, the big question is, will that scale? Is that good enough to build premium products? So big question there. Then at Fortan, we have another international guest that will help your teams also work better together. So there's really no excuse for being inefficient as an organization as of tomorrow. This is the last day that can happen. Now, many companies have tried their agile transformation. Who here works agile? For who does this work? So many companies also have experienced the disappointment of what an agile transformation can lead to, but our speaker Cliff Hazel will luckily tell you how you can still unlock that value. And then finally, at the ADA stage, we have another panel, this time on AI. And sure, our AI lead Remy has invited some very inspiring guests from EMAC and even from OpenAI. But he also invited a third guest, namely AI itself. Now, so that's right, AI itself will also be actively participating in this panel. And with that, our afternoon concludes. Now, before I send you off, just looking very briefly at the evening program, we have an immersive music experience by artist and technologist Niels Orens. That's also a first for In the Pocket. And then we have 2 keynotes by 2 of the smartest people that I know. One happens to be my boss, Jeroen Lemaire. So this is me flattering Jeroen Lemaire. And then the other is Azim Azar, in my opinion, one of the most influential voices in technology, next, of course, to Jeroen Lemaire. So stick around, but for now, I would say, enjoy your afternoon. You can now go to the room or stage that you want to join. Thank you. I would say welcome back, but you never left. Maybe you're fascinated by generative AI, maybe you're fascinated by Bunq, maybe you just like this chair. You'll never know. For long, humanity has thought that the speed of light was the fastest thing in the universe. That is until 2023 and the advent of generative AI. Because as we have all experienced on our LinkedIn feeds, we have now discovered that there is nothing faster than metaverse and Web3 evangelists turning into AI experts. Truly an amazing transition, how that happened. Luckily, we have the real deal for you here today, Mr. Ali Al-Hassouni. He has a PhD in artificial intelligence at the University of Amsterdam. He co-founded an AI medical startup, and he currently leads the data team at digital bank Bunq. Ali will take the stage to unveil the extraordinary power of generative AI and its groundbreaking influence on the world of fintech. Discover how Bunq harnesses this technology to revolutionize banking and shape the future of financial services. Welcome, Ali.
Thanks for the introduction. I'm Ali, head of data and AI at Bunq. I've been with Bunq for almost 8 years, so I'm becoming like like furniture at Bunq. So we've been doing a lot of amazing stuff regarding AI and data, and since, let's say, 6 months, we started a journey with generative AI. It was a nice idea, proposal, and we got budget to hire a team, and we started hiring people. We started working on a few use cases, and if I look back at that period, it was the best 6 months during that 8 years at Bunq, by far. Today I'm going to give you like a sneak peek into different use cases we've been building. So Bunq is a digital bank founded in Amsterdam in 2012. We went live in 2015 in the Netherlands. And we are now a unicorn company. We have around 10 million customers across Europe. And we started our expansion to the US a few months ago. We do things differently. I'm going to skip the agenda slide. We do things differently. We don't have a physical branch. You can sign up for the application in 5 minutes on your phone. You can open the bank account as well on your phone. And we try to tackle the way we do banking in a different manner compared to traditional banks. Who here has heard of Bunq before? Just curious, just a raise hand. Oh, quite some people. I'm just wondering, did anyone hear about the court case regarding fraud detection with the Dutch regulator? A few hands. To give you an introduction about that topic and why AI is like at the basis of what we do at Bunq everywhere across the whole company. We had a problem with fraud detection, which is we have to check all transactions, and we started growing. We had a rule-based system in place, and the number of hits we would get on a daily basis was increasing rapidly. We thought, let's use smarter methods, and you end up using machine learning. It worked much better, and we basically applied it in production. We started using it. It led to amazing results, and the Dutch regulator drops by for an audit. They tell us you cannot use it. It ended up being a court case, and we ended up winning that court case, and it was the first Dutch bank that wins from DNB. And it was all about using AI. For many of you, you may think, that's what kind of thinking is that? But that's how banking operates in many countries in Europe still. We noticed a few things. We noticed that there is a need for change. We noticed that traditional rule-based systems everywhere at Bunq, we're not doing a great job. There's a demand for more scalable and more intelligent approaches. And it's already started with applying data, applying AI in general. And this has only accelerated with the emergence of generative AI. Why are these methods underperforming in terms of accuracy or in terms of what they do on a daily basis? They lack adaptability. So that's one of the things that we noticed very quickly. We would build a rule for a certain use case, for instance, to detect phishing. and that rule would be obsolete after, let's say, 6 months because of the changing environment we are dealing with. Stuff like inflation could already influence the thresholds you have defined for certain rules. So you have to be you have to maintain the system consistently, which is the second point. They come with high maintenance costs. We deal with a lot of false positives. So we would have like thousands of hits that we'd have to check. A hit is a transaction you'd have to check. And at the end of the day, a very large portion turns out to be just legitimate transactions. But since you have to check a lot, you end up to do a lot of manual work that's not required. They're not flexible. If you apply them for a certain use case, you cannot reuse them somewhere else. And finally, they are, in the end, not effective at all. Using data and AI, we can take this to the next level. We can make the approach scalable and more intelligent. This leads usually to operational efficiency. I'll show you in a bit a few use cases where we have like clear numbers about results of applying data and AI in operations. They're dynamic, so that you can personalize them and they can personalize towards the end customer. Rule-based systems are not that dynamic in the end. The decision-making process becomes data-driven, so it's based on actual facts. It's not based on biases you may put in the rules. We use it for intelligent marketing. We use hyper-personalization approach in our marketing. Again, I'll show you in a bit some very good use cases. And they are future-proof. I just gave you the example of changing environment leading to the rule becoming obsolete. When it comes to AI systems, it's a matter of having your data infrastructure in order, and the rest is history. It's just a matter of updating and monitoring and making sure that the framework is complete. Probably you've heard of LLMs, large language models. This was a thing, it existed for quite a while, for years already. GPT-2 was there in 2019, I think, or 18. We were using it back then already, but sometime last year, I think November, ChatGPT became a thing, and all of a sudden LLMs, interest in LLMs started skyrocketing. We could see it in the number of published papers, we could see it in the number of use cases, open source packages being put online, etc., etc. And for a reason, of course. These LLMs are not just a typical language model. They come with a few advantages, and one of them is emergent abilities. So they can take existing data and they can give you something new. With machine learning, we had this thing called supervised learning, where you would give it data you've gathered historically, and it will give you something similar to what you had before, right? It will be able to predict stuff, it will be able to extrapolate, but it wasn't creative. I'm not saying LLMs are creative because that's a very broad definition, but I can actually generate stuff that you didn't see before in your data set. They have contextual understanding, which is a very good thing that you could use in practice when it comes to operational excellence. The interaction can now be super personalized, and with that I mean it can be personalized to every person that it has interaction with. And finally, advanced pattern recognition. We're now combining different modalities. We're combining text with structured data, with documents. You can even have voice in there and images. And you can utilize it in different ways. You can utilize it for search and retrieval. Just a matter of gathering all the information in one place and allowing the LLM to access that information, which allows you to interact with it and get your intended result. Secondly, you can have a conversation with your data. That's something completely new. Before you could have a conversation by just writing queries. You could talk to your data through queries, and now you can talk to it through text. And the last thing is, you can generate. You can tell it to do more than what you have seen before in your historical data set. So at Bunq, we started with a small team of people, and we called it Fin. The name was generated by a generative model. And Fin is our internal large language model. It's not a completely trained in-house. It utilizes existing large language models within the community, both commercial or open source. So think of GPT-4, BART, Llama, or any model you can find out there, Claude, you name it. You plug it in, we have a pipeline, and as you can see here, this is version 0.1, so this is the very first version we implemented. We gathered all our knowledge base in one place. This includes documents from Google Workspace to GitLab issues in GitLab to any form of documentation you may have on your wiki, elsewhere in your systems. You can all gather, you can put it together in one central place, and Finn will be able to access it, and then you can do stuff with it. And with stuff, I mean the three things I just mentioned in the last slide. We have built a pipeline that consists of some steps that make it work, so we don't need to fine-tune initially. You can just use it out of the box. And this includes embeddings, smart databases, so different way of storing data, so vector databases compared to actual, traditional databases, and some other techniques that are out there that you could just find online. We use that information, we combine it with a prompt, and all of a sudden we can now query our data in a very new way. So this is how it looks like for every person at Bunq. It's a front end, so you can just talk to it. And we have an API layer, and through the API layer we can integrate it within our within our systems in operations. And it can be used for automation or for assistance within Bunq. So everyone at Bunq could now all of a sudden start asking, hey, who is owner of that specific tool within Bunq? Usually you would have to poke a few people that would respond after 15 minutes, and only one of them will tell you, hey, you may have to poke that person. And now you just ask Finn directly and he'll tell you, like, this is the GitLab link, this is the person. It saves us a lot of time. If someone is new at Bunq and they want to know something about the policy, they can look it up. If they want to know about how to request time off, they can look it up. It's connected to everything. We have a routing system whereby we can give it access to different information sources. And we are doing that, of course, in a secure manner. So there is different ways of giving access to people. There's a secure endpoint, there is a less secure endpoint. And the secure one only allows you to access certain parts of the data source. So using this, we started with the implementation. And at Bunq, we don't spend too much time thinking about how to do it. We just get started and iterate very quickly, and iterate a lot. We implemented a lot of use cases at the same time, and the goal was to show that this technology will work and have a few winning use cases. Using those winning use cases, we can then, I can get more budget for a bigger team, more use cases, I can spend more time making it better. The first use case was customer support. We are scaling, we're growing, we're getting a lot of new customers on a daily basis, and it leads to a lot of operational work. And the first type of operational workload is customer support. So our customers, we try to make the app in such a way that they don't have to ask questions. But sometimes you do end up with unclear situations, so a customer will log into the app and ask a question, and it's multimodal. Either text, voice, or video. But I can tell you more than 90% is text. So we started with tackling this problem. You can do two things. You can hire more customer agents and scale that way, or you can automate. What we did was we started drafting answers for tickets, for every single ticket that arrives at our systems. So they would enter the front end that we have, and they would see a draft created by Finn. And if they like it, they can accept it. If they disagree, they give us that feedback as well. If they don't like it a little bit, they can edit it. So they have three options. And just a raise of hand, what do you think, what would be the acceptance rate, you think, when it comes to the drafts that we provide to customer agents? Like who said 10%? Yeah, I heard 80%. higher, lower, higher. Yeah, we started I think with 60%. I'm looking at Giacomo over there. 60% and 70%, 75, and now I think are at 85%. So 85% of the drafts are either accepted directly or are edited a little bit, which means that it saves a lot of time for our customer agents to provide answers, because that's what we care about, providing answers in a timely manner. Imagine you're stuck somewhere in a place and you want to make a payment with your card and it's blocked for some reason and you're trying to reach our customer support. You want to answer as soon as possible, and of course answer with a high quality answer. We didn't stop there because this is not automation, this is assistance. We noticed that there is a lot of tickets that are quite repetitive. They are very simple, and the confidence, the confidence of Finn answering them correctly was very high. So we started automating, and automation is done in the following way. We look at a ticket and we assign a confidence probability. And if that confidence is higher than a certain threshold, we can then assume that the answer will be correct, because we don't want to send an incorrect answer to our customers. We started with this process. We're monitoring it like day and night, literally almost every ticket, to make sure that everything is going right. And we started with like 1%, 2%, 5%, at some point 16%, 19%, and a few days ago almost 30% completely automated. And the trick here is not the automation itself. Of course, that works really well, but the trick here is the feedback loop. So we would get a lot of feedback from customer agents, and based on that feedback, they would go back to the knowledge base and update our knowledge base. Because the reasons that certain tickets were answered incorrectly or partially incorrectly was because the knowledge base was not completely correct, or was missing some information, or was outdated, etc., etc. So having that feedback loop in place is very important. So what happens now is whenever Finn drafts a wrong answer, when someone detects it, so a human, compliance or a customer support agent, they will basically give that feedback to someone else that is responsible for the knowledge base, and they will update it. The moment you update it, we see directly that the next ticket with the same question will probably be answered correctly. And that's how we keep increasing and improving. We have a lot of things on the roadmap to make this 50%, that's our goal, 50% automated, whereby the quality is higher. And if I would tell you, like, we look at customer satisfaction score, would you say the customer satisfaction score went up or down, or stayed like the same after implementing Finn? Up? Yeah. I'm just wondering why up? Yeah, exactly. So we noticed that the customer satisfaction score was higher when we implemented Finn compared to without Finn. It is timeliness, but if you look at tickets that are answered faster, it's also like Finn would also get a higher rating, and it's not just the speed, it's also the completeness of the answer. So we noticed that customer agents were using templates. So to make their work efficient, they were creating templates for themselves. So they were reusing those templates, and the answers were less personalized. And customers know this and see this, and that leads to less satisfaction. Finn is super personalized, so the answers you get are really personalized, and usually they are also very extensive. We can, of course, tell it to provide shorter answers. We have that control in the prompting part. But these things also play a role. So it's timeliness, but also the quality of the answers, and it comes across as an answer that has been, written with care, compared to a situation where you just use an existing template. Like I said, our goal is to go to 50% automated and maybe beyond, but that's something that will happen in the next few months. Something that we have been using generative AI for a while now is marketing. We started in 2019 with a very small idea. So we were scaling, we were spending more money on marketing, but we would not see, like if you would spend double the marketing budget, we would not see the amount of customers coming in doubling as well. That was not happening. It was like a diminishing return and S-curve in the marketing campaigns. And we detected this, and we came up with a hypothesis. And the hypothesis was the scalability of the marketing campaigns. So we would need more campaigns, and we would have to, cover more keywords, cover a larger space in the potential audience. Again, you can hire a bigger marketing team. That's a possibility, but it was not a possibility for us back then. Or you could do smart things. And with GPT-2, we came up with a proposal that was accepted within the company to use GPT to basically generate a lot of keywords and generate a lot of headlines, A/B test them on a very large scale, and keep the ones that perform very well and kill the ones that don't perform very well. I remember I got a budget of 500 euros per week, I think. We implemented it, we saw the first results, it worked, and we kept getting more budget and more budget. Fast forward, we now run 90% of our performance marketing online using this system. It's completely automated using GPT to generate keywords, to generate headlines, and A/B testing is done on a large scale. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of keywords and headlines run at the same time, all related to fintech and financial systems and banking. And we basically keep iterating and updating and improving. Like I said, 90% is completely automated, and we saw that our marketing approach all of a sudden became very scalable. Spending more money on marketing right now means more customers, and that used to be different in the past. And we keep improving this by looking at smarter ways of matching keywords with headlines, smart ways of doing translation, localization, etc., etc., etc. Third use case is in-app personalization. This is a use case that we worked on together with Google using Google Bard, and we were already personalizing our messages towards our customers in the app. So there are two types of push notifications in the app. There's transactional push notifications, and you have marketing push notifications. Here I'm talking about marketing-related push notifications. And we can only send it when a customer gives us the consent to basically send them push notifications and use the data for this. So what we were doing is we would generate, let's say, a set of 10 different variants of a push notification, all generated by our content team. And we would run it using contextual bandits. This is one technique out there in AI that you could use to choose what push notification to show at a certain point in time, given the context, which is what customer are you talking about? Is it like someone that is 65 years old or someone that's 18 years old? It was working really well actually. It's a mathematical approach, and you just start testing. You show a bunch of variants to your customers, and then you just observe the result. If the conversion rate is high and the intended outcome is also taking place, you give it more probability of it happening next time. So, and at some point, a few variants will win. Okay, so this was working already working really well. The conversion rate increased a lot, but then we noticed that the personalization was not exactly what we wanted it to be. Like people that were, for instance, let's say 50 years old, were getting notifications that contained emojis. They didn't like that. They wanted like simple text. Younger people like notifications more with some emojis. So what we did with Google is we would hyper-personalize using the context of that customer. So we don't have 10 variants anymore, but we have 10 million variants per customer, basically. So what we do is you ask an LLM to generate a personalized message per person, given a set of demographics, anonymized. It's only data we can share, of course, with the LLM. We did this, and we saw a spike in the conversion rate right away. And I'm not talking about a few percent. I'm talking about like, going from 4% to maybe 12 percent points overnight when it comes to, people clicking on notifications. It worked like out of the box. And the reason it worked is because it's user-centric. It's context-aware. That's, I think, the key thing. All of a sudden, it's hyper-personalized, and it's personalized to the experience. So it's not just a matter of sending the right message at the right time, but now also sending it in your own language. So the chance that someone will actually read it increases significantly. Transaction monitoring is my favorite. This is my little baby at Bunq. So I've worked on transaction monitoring. That was my first project at Bunq. Basically built a system from scratch, and we used AI to detect fraud and to perform anti-money laundering within Bunq. It went really well until we ended up in a court case. In the end, we won this court case. But now we want to take it to the next step. We've been stuck for 4 years because it was not clear whether we could innovate. And now we know that we can innovate with AI, so we want to take it to the next place. So I want to tell you, I'm going to take the next 10 minutes to tell you a little bit about this, about how it looks like, and then also how we are now using generative AI to take it to the next step. So this is our system in a nutshell. We have built our core banking system. Now it's just a database, okay? That's our core banking system. Transactions take place. Users use our app or cards to make payments. The payments will arrive in the database. And after that, we have to perform transaction monitoring. This is our duty as a bank. In Dutch, we say poortwachtersfunctie. We have to make sure that we check the transactions. And there are two ways of doing this. There is real-time transaction filtering, and there is real-time or after-the-fact transaction monitoring. So real-time transaction filtering is meant to block transactions from happening. So the moment you are paying, we have to check a lot of stuff and then make a decision, do we block this payment or not? That system relies quite a bit on rule-based systems combined with some data-driven approaches that are a bit smarter. For various reasons. One of the reasons is that it has to be very fast, so you have to keep it simple. It has to be very accurate, but also in terms of false negatives and false positives, mistakes are not allowed. You don't want to block a payment for no reason, because our customers will just notice that, and we care a lot about the customer experience. So after transaction filtering takes place, the transaction is executed. After that, we'll have to do transaction monitoring, which is after the fact. So usually we have an X amount of time to check a transaction. We do that within seconds to minutes at Bunq. We will calculate per transaction around 550 different data points. It looks at basic demographics like where did the transaction take place, to very complex features that look at what kind of payment was made in the last 24 hours in a certain country, given a certain payment type, if you did something else. At some point it can become very complex, and that's how we can make this system also very accurate. And this system consists of a few things. We make a split between natural persons and businesses, because the behaviors are very different. Like comparing personal behavior with a crypto exchange, the model would just go crazy if you would have to do it with one system. So you have to make a split there. And we have to make a split between rule-based systems, supervised models, and unsupervised models. Rule-based, that is knowledge you are controlling, you put it there as a rule and it works. I said it has some drawbacks, and we are minimizing the amount of rules we have, but we need to have certain rules. Sometimes you want to have a rule that blocks certain countries because the political scene is changing. Like at some point Russia was high risk. You have to basically change that. Supervised learning models learn from what you have seen in the past. So we have a data set. It's labeled by our compliance agents. It's high quality data, and we use that data to learn patterns. So it learns to detect what it saw in the past, and it learns to do so with a very high accuracy. Unsupervised models don't care about your labeling. It looks at anything that is weird. So everything that was not hit by any of the rule-based systems and the supervised learning models that is left out will be checked once again every night. And if it finds something weird, it will report it. And this is how we keep finding new types of fraud within Bunq. So if something that is an outlier would pop up, the unsupervised learning model increases the chances of this system catching it. After that, hits are generated. They will be checked by humans manually. This is where operations comes in. And they have a process, it's pretty optimized, and they look at the transaction, they have a way of doing that. So it's an assessment workflow. They can decide to not flag it. That means wasted time in a sense, because you spend a lot of time analyzing a certain hit. You look at the history of the customer payments, and it turns out there's nothing wrong. The system was just wrong about flagging this transaction. Or you flag it, and if it's flagged, then we do an investigation, and it's either reported to the financial crime unit, or it's monitored for a longer period of time, or it's cleared for various reasons. There are reasons why a transaction can be cleared. This process does not scale well when you look at the amount of time and people you need on a daily basis. So this is starting to become a roadblock. We're growing very fast, and the activity of our customers is also growing fast as well, which is double growth, and we see that happening in the amount of hits we are receiving on a daily basis. So to keep up, we have to come up with something smart, and that's where we implemented generative AI to improve this process. So what we did is we built Hitman, which is the name of which is the brother of Fin, and Hitman looks at hits same way a human would look at it. It would look at all the different data points we have per transaction. It would look at all our historical knowledge base, and it looks at the workflow we have defined and we have set up at Bunq. Using that information and using a certain large language model, it would come with an analysis of what it thinks should be the outcome of a hit. Okay? And basically it comes up with a recommendation of whether to report it, not report it, or clear it. Again, just a raise of hands. Yeah, I see a question, but first a raise of hands. What would be the accuracy of such a system in your opinion? Let's say below 20%, above 50%, above 80%. It seems like he's getting them, getting the accuracy is very, it's 50%. It's close to 50%. This is the first iteration of the system. By the way, you also said 80%, and the previous one was also correct. That's impressive. It's 50%. It's not optimized yet. It's just the first try we did. So there is no custom. If you look at the pipeline that I showed you before, so this pipeline, we just reused it as is, the very basic form of it. There's no customization yet, like we did with customer tickets. So we are expecting higher performance there. Again, so what such a system does now, when a customer agent or a customer compliance agent opens a ticket transaction monitoring hit, they see a draft of potential response that they could submit to the FIU if they want to. Again, they have the possibility to accept it, edit it, or reject it. Given this 50% or close to 50% acceptance rate, we saw a drop of average handling time going from 9 minutes to 2 minutes for the cases that are correct. That's a huge amount of time saved up in operations without losing on quality, because we still have humans in the loop and also humans on the loop, which is very important when it comes to compliance. So we're not automating yet here, which is the next step, but then this is trickier than customer tickets. This is something you want to do with very, very, very high confidence. You had a question? Yeah. What it does now, it's a language model. The input is the 550 different data points per transaction, the process, and all the other information you need to give it. The output is pretty hard coded, so we ask it to give the output in a certain way. So it gives the analysis, it gives the modus operandi, which is what we have to do, and it gives you the verdict. You can ask it to provide you with the accuracies for the verdict, but the question is whether they are accurate. That's something that I did not test. We did not test. Actually, that would be a very good idea to implement, because having them for all three of them is actually more. It's more information than just having it for one of the options. Yeah.
Hitman, how close do you explain them? Like, do you tell them now it's at 50% and you're the person doing the active learning?
Yeah.
They understand everything, they know what they have in front of them?
Yeah, so that's something that I had in one of the last slides, one of the learnings actually. This was a very interesting process. So we with customer tickets, the moment we gave them the drafts, they still thought they could do better. And probably they could do better, but it's not scalable. So what we did is to make sure that this goes very well is we started training everybody at Bunq regarding generative AI. So there is a course, and last quarter my KPI was to train together with my team basically to train around 180 people, and those are the teams that use generative AI the most. So customer tickets, compliance agents, etc., etc. For this quarter, the KPI is 80% of the company. So everybody is expected to have a basic knowledge of generative AI to start with, responsible AI, and how to use it in practice. So prompt engineering, what to expect from it, etc., etc. All right. So while doing this, we realized this is just a repeatable system. We can build it in one department. We can reuse it in another department. Of course, we started without. I said like we didn't plan a lot. We just started. So you end up with a messy code base or a messy system that is customized towards different use cases. What we're doing now is we are making a framework out of it. So we are making sure that the system that we're building is going to be reusable across different departments within Bunq. We already have, I think, 15 plus use cases. We are doing code reviews in GitLab using a language model. So there is an additional step in the it's going to be part of the CI/CD pipeline that we have that does the checks in terms of LinkedIn, but also just logic in the code. We are implementing this for legal. So whenever they get like a legal request, there's a document and they have a question, Finn will just draft an answer. And we saw extremely high accuracies there as well with the test that we did. We are using this for onboarding, so know your customer. We have different steps within onboarding whereby a lot of manual work is needed, such as checking names against an existing database using fuzzy matching. It turned out that we could use this, do this with the rule-based systems, but you could also use large language models for that as well. We're using it for translation, we're using it for content generation, and more and more use cases within Bunq are basically being requested. A funny one is when we have a bug report, someone is working on a use case whereby the bug report will be used to find the piece of code that leads to that bug, to make sure that the developer does not waste time looking for that bug. Of course, the developer said, okay, but this is not good for junior developers because then they don't learn about the code base. But then you can make a split, like if it's a junior person, you still have to search for the bug or something. and many other use cases out there that are being implemented right now. We came up with a framework for ethical AI to make sure that this scales well without creating a lot of risk in the long run, because that's very important. So the framework looks at a few things. One of them is data privacy. So we have to make sure that the data that we're using for every use case is exactly the data we can use and not more than that. So there's access management in terms of what data we can use for a use case and what LLM can be queried for what use case. Because transaction data, we cannot use GPT, because you have to send your data to OpenAI, which is across the border, or at least across the Atlantic, and it needs different legal framing. So for that use case, we'll need to have either an LLM hosted in Europe or an LLM hosted internally, like an open source large language model. Bias mitigation, which is a very tricky one. This is something that we started looking into. It will become more and more like of an issue once we scale the use cases and once we have the feedback loops in place. Because right now we are using the LLMs as they are. We're not fine-tuning anything, and as we start gathering more data through the feedback that we get from our compliance agent, our customer support agents, we have to make sure that feedback is also without bias. Otherwise, you end up with a biased system. And we're looking into methods to do this in a better way. Transparency. We communicate all of this with our customers. Again, just giving these kind of talks, we're being transparent about what we're doing. This talk was given 3 times last week, or a similar talk, at different companies, different locations, different venues, just to spread this message, but also to be transparent, to show our customers, to show our peers what we are doing and how we're doing it. User consent, that's very important. So we make sure that Fin is only used whenever a user tells us you're allowed to send me a push notification, or you're allowed to use this data for my service. And finally, accountability, which is one of the cornerstones of the DNB guideline regarding AI. So we have processes in place to know who is accountable and when something goes wrong. So when it comes to LLMs, it's like who's the owner of the deployment process for new LLMs within Bunq, or who is the owner of a certain process when something goes wrong. Because then we can mitigate these risks in a timely manner. We know who can fix them, and we can make sure that we minimize the risk. The framework looks as follows. We always have our backend in the center of this picture. That's where all the data resides and where all the payments take place. There is a machine learning part. There is a compliance step where legal risk and compliance will have to sign off on certain use cases before we can actually use them. There's a deployment step. That's where us data team operate. There is a explainability module that is a separate module that can be used to basically, that allows us to explain why we make a certain prediction or why we generate a certain output. And then there is like the front end. That's where the hate investigations take place, where the compliance agents are working on a daily basis, and that's where customer tickets are being answered. And then there is a monitoring step where we monitor the whole system. So this is human in the loop, human on the loop. We monitor the whole system. If something goes down, we get a notification. If accuracy goes down, someone will be notified. If a new LLM is implemented, we'll add it to the monitoring step, and will basically be monitored closely. And now we're moving towards also monitoring the prompts as well, to make sure that Fin is being used safely by the rest of the company as well. So this is both for accountability and privacy, and making sure that bias is being mitigated, etc. While doing all of this, we learned a lot of things. Like I said, we just started, and it was just build as much as possible, many use cases, iterate and improve. Few use cases will win. And if I would have to do this over again, I would do it slightly in a different way, but I didn't have this knowledge back then. And I would start with defining clear objectives. And with clear objectives, I mean very good measurable outcomes. So when it comes to customer support, what do you expect? What is the end goal that you expect? In our case, it would be being able to answer a ticket accurately. And how do you measure that? Customer satisfaction and the acceptance rate from our customer agents. Secondly, data quality and availability, which is, if data quality is bad, this whole pipeline that I showed you will not work. At Bunq, we've always been focusing on data quality. Even for unstructured data, we have a very high quality standard. We have templates. For instance, deadlines are always written in a certain way. Everybody in the company. Nobody is deviating from that. Once you have that kind of data quality, large language model application will start having very high accuracies, because it's unstructured data, but in a sense it is high quality and is quite structured, given the templates and different ways of writing certain notations is how it's applied in practice. Feedback loop, in my opinion, the most important one. Feedback loop is very important. You need it for various reasons. One of them is to make the system better. You need feedback, and feedback will improve your knowledge base, because that's what you feed the system, and it will help you basically iterate quickly. So what we have now is, for instance, the data scientist or the machine learning engineer that built this is having direct interaction with the end users of the system, which are the compliance agents, the customer agents, and he or she are getting feedback almost on a daily basis regarding the improvements that can be done. So while they are working, they notice something, and it's directly communicated to that person to make a change. And sometimes we see like we can fix things within 10 minutes. Something would be answered in a wrong way. They change something. 10 minutes later, it's deployed, and it's outputting the right answer. Human AI collaboration. This was one of the biggest hurdles. Having an accurate AI system does not mean that people will like it. It does not mean that people will use it in practice. Again, various reasons. Misaligned KPIs could already kill this whole project. So make sure that the KPIs that you have in place they are aligned with the model you are building. If the KPI that you have for customer agents is handle as many tickets as possible independently, then automating is going against their KPI, so it will not work. So people will resist it. So make sure that the KPIs they have in place are in line with automation, which is focus more on quality, focus more on timeliness, focus more on customer satisfaction instead of output. And make sure that the people that are working with these systems understand these systems. So what we did at Bunq is we started doing the trainings, and if you did the training very well, this could unlock a workshop with, for instance, Google, where you go to their offices and do a workshop, and then people get motivated to spend more time on this, use it, understand it, and get better at it. And ethical regulatory considerations are, this is a tricky one. I think this is one of the biggest roadblocks that we encounter within my team. So for customer tickets, it was fine. We could just deploy it safely. But for the other use cases where the stakes are high and it's regulatory and compliance stuff, you have to get different departments on board. And it starts with advice from legal, risk and compliance, making sure that our chief risk officer is on the same page. They understand exactly what we're building. They understand exactly what we are going to be automating and how we monitor it. What are the risks? Run some tests, explain it to them. Make sure that you view it from their perspective. And if you do that, then you can define a very small use case, and start from there. And if you show that it works really well for that small use case, then you can start expanding and implementing more. Any questions from the room? Yeah.
Are there any limits of the amount of data that you can feed to large language models? Your
Yeah.
own data, I mean. What's the
Yeah.
technical limit?
So what we are doing here is we are relying a lot on zero-shot learning or few-shot learning. So we don't fine-tune the models that much. And that comes with the following limitation: you have to provide it with the right context. So if you ask it something about who is owner of a certain system, let's say Looker, for instance, that's our dashboarding tool, it will go and search in the knowledge base, and it will find a GitLab issue where the ownership is defined. But in other cases, it will have to gather a lot of information, and that information will not fit in the context length of the LLM. So it used to be like, I don't know, 12K, and now it's 32K, and now you have like Claude, which is 100K. So that's one of the limiting factors, but that's getting better. So we went already from 12K tokens to 100K tokens, and the longer the context length, the more you can do, the more information you can put in the prompt, and the better the output will be.
I understand the
Yeah.
limit, but there is a second part of the equation is the size of the knowledge base.
Yeah.
So how big can that be?
What we put there is all or most of the Google Workspace documents that are indexed, or at least the ones that we are able to use. So we're talking about tens of thousands of documents. We're not talking about millions. But when it comes to structured data, you can put all your structured data in there, and all of a sudden it becomes very big. You can put all your event data in there, and all of a sudden it becomes very big. But that comes with another problem, which is, again, speed, and two is the ability to find the right information. Because the more information you provide it, the less likely it becomes that it will find the right information. So it's a balance between, just how do you store information in a concise manner, that it's still, doable for such a model to be able to query it every time and provide a correct answer.
Thank you for the presentation. Do you have some additional information from, let's say, which size of company, or for example, which number of customer agents, so such kind of investments become interesting, and something about the ROI of your project?
Yeah. We look at it from the following perspective. We want to minimize, we want to make the experience for our customers as seamless as possible. And that comes with a few things. So operations, so reducing the time they have to wait for answers, minimizing mistakes in compliance, for instance, checks that are done that turn out to be wrong. That's where we start. That's our ROI actually. So that's how we look at it. I think even if it's a small company, you should start doing this, because the cost of implementing such a system is very low. It scales with the amount of people you have and the amount of customers you have. I would say the ROI would be positive when the team would have been 10 people, for instance, 10 customer agents. It would already have an effect on the results. In our case, it's way bigger, but even with smaller teams, it matters a lot, because the cost of implementation is not that big. You don't have to train the models, you don't have to fine-tune them. Just a matter of ensuring that that knowledge base is of good quality, and that you have access to these models. And if you don't use them a lot, you don't pay a lot.
Because, for example, if I look at our company, we have a couple of customer agents, let's say around 10 or even less than 10, between 5 and 10. We source some external automation tools, not build it internally based on our knowledge.
Yeah.
Do you have some experience with that? Let's say
Yeah.
in-house versus external software?
I mean, external is fine as long as you can connect your knowledge base to it, because that's where the value lays. That's your data. To make the answers accurate, you need your own data. You need your own historical customer interactions, and you need your knowledge base. Otherwise, it will be trying to solve this problem with a generic solution. It works to a certain extent, but with your own data, you can go further. It's way better.
Thanks.
Thank you. My question is in the line of the last question. How labor intensive is it to implement such use cases in an organization? I think in your organization quite a lot of people are involved in it.
Yeah.
How many percent of your organization or the digital team are involved in this?
Yeah, so there are a few teams involved. First of all, it starts with the data team. Then there is risk and compliance, but there's just a few people that have to sign off. And then the end users, and that's where, where it can be labor intensive. And first of all, you have to train them. You have to implement the right front end. And after that, having the feedback loop, so you have to have a dedicated person or persons that provide the feedback. You have to have the process owners, people monitoring the process and improving it. So you need a lot of investment in terms of buy-in from different teams. That's definitely important, because you cannot just do it with the data or AI team. You will be building something, you will deploy it somewhere, but people don't understand how to use it. There's no feedback, there's no communication. So you need different departments from the company to collaborate, definitely.
Yeah, it's a bit the same questions about the team is working, but you say like the AI team, but how many are you exactly?
We're almost 20 people.
20 people,
Yeah.
That's already a big team.
Yeah, we grow from I think 7 to 20 in like 4 or 5 months.
Wow,
And it's
okay.
growing very fast.
Yeah, and you're also mentioning about the high quality data that you need for your knowledge base, that's the basic, but did you have had any challenges on that? Because it's not always there on the shelf, let's say.
Yeah. Yes. We've had a lot of challenges to get data consistency, not even quality, consistency to a certain level. With consistency, I mean, for instance, where is that? That's in one of the slides. Give me a second. Yeah. Consistency is just data moving from this part to this part, and it being exactly the same data. That's already a challenge, I can tell you, in many organizations.
We're also struggling with that.
Yeah, and that's step one. Like, data, while it's in the backend, it looks like this, and then when you move it to the data environment or the AI environment, it looks very different, but then you'll have to use it here in production. So you train for something different than what it's going to be used for. So you have to make sure that data consistency is very important, is very accurate. In our case, it's almost 100%. We spent a lot of time on fixing that.
How long did you take to fix it?
A year and a half, 2 maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a very lengthy process. You have to compare the source with the destination and fix stuff. Find the reasons why the different copies of the data are different. And you'll find different reasons. So certain reasons are race conditions or certain encodings being done differently in different databases. These kind of corner cases. And if you fix them one by one, at some point you'll get to 99.9 or something. And then you have solved data consistency. But then there's data quality, which is also dependent on the human input. And that's trickier. That's something that I think personally you can only fix by fixing the processes while entering the data. So we have data that comes from our customers, but we have also data that comes from our employees. The one for our employees, we can fix it by having clear processes in place, having clear guidelines, naming conventions. Even for dates, everybody has to use the exact convention. Yeah, and then for customers, that's a bit trickier, but that's something you can do with UX and with proper design. was not my field, it was not my area of expertise, but that's something that can be improved as well using UX.
Thank you.
Maybe we can do one more question before we go into the break.
Thank you for the presentation. Actually, I had a lot of questions about the data consistency and motivation of the team to input the proper data. I think you covered it already partially, but I